So here we are again. Here we are again with the Maxwell situation. What's going on here? What is the situation? What is going on? Well, let me tell you. It is quite interesting, I have to admit. It is quite interesting because what we have several things happening at the same time. First of all, who interviewed Maxwell? Maxwell was interviewed for 9 hours. She was interviewed for 9 hours. And this thing that you need to understand, let me explain to you, right? She was by Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche, a former legal advisor in Florida and she, listen to this, she answered questions for roughly 100 individuals. She talked about 100 individuals. The Department of DOJ granted her limited prefer immunity so that she could talk and not bother anyone. But basically, that's what she did. Then the interview was conducted under a directive reported linked to GOP pressure, including Trump base. They want to know what's happening to uncover additional names or criminal behavior. Legal commentators have raised concern about her direct involvement, giving ethical consideration and potential conflict of interest. Since he previously represented Trump and received substantial donation from Trump aligned. Trump's direct involvement. The man got money from Trump. Anyway, so what are we trying to say here? First of all, I think it's important for the overall picture is this. One, we need to look at why did they fire Comey? You know, Comey's daughter actually was a prosecutor for P. Diddy, believe it or not, and she was also the prosecutor for this case, and yet she was fired. What the heck happened here? Okay. Second, Ghislaine Maxwell did not say everything that happened during the trial. You know, it was very, very, because they said, well, how come nobody else was found guilty of this thing? Well, nobody was found guilty because they were just going after her. They didn't open up to everything. So it was a very, very delicate, very surgical type of trial just to go after her. Three, one thing you do not want Trump involved in this at all. It's very important, and I will explain to you why. Four, so all rigged favor Democrats. We'll see. So you need to get it done. We need to get this done. This is messy, and it needs to get it done. The thing is, you don't want to get it done, and it needs to get done very quickly. So this thing is trifled of issues. Let me explain to you what it is. First of all, what's happening right now is this guy went over. Well, first of all, let's go see, who was Maureen Comey? What happened there, right? Well, Maureen Comey, believe it or not, is the daughter of James Comey, which Trump really didn't like. But more importantly, she joined the U.S. Attorney Office in 2015, and she rose to senior counsel in 2025. She led and played a key roles in the prosecution of Ghislaine Maxwell. Yet, she just got fired. So what? This is where I need to explain to you what it really means, right? Why would they want to get rid of her? Why was she fired? Well, no reason was given. Ghislaine's Maxwell prosecutor was fired for no reason. Literally. Maureen received no formal explanation. The decision was communicated via letter referencing presidential powers. Basically, the president says, I want her out. I guess they say, well, and this is a two level of information that I usually tell you about. The first one is, well, Trump didn't like her because of her father. I don't think so. I think the reason they let her go, they say potential political motivation, timing of the amid Epstein documentation controversy, alleged pattern of DOJ purge. I don't think so. I think that they let her go because there may be a clemency hint. It is very plausible. Listen to me on this one. It is very plausible that Maureen Comey was seen as a roadblock to a potential clemency or pardon for Maxwell. They're going to pardon her by Donald Trump. While there are no official confirmation, obviously, several circumstances factors strongly support this possibility. She was the lead prosecutor in the Maxwell case. I mean, imagine, of all people, it had to be her. It's amazing. Her, whose father really didn't like Trump and vice versa. In fact, he fired him. She was deeply involved in trial strategy, evidence presentation, and sentencing recommendation. A continued presence gave credibility and institutional memory to the case, legally and politically difficult. So clemency, if that happens, would require institutional cooperation. Even if a president grants clemency, the DOJ Office of the Pardon Attorney, the Bureau of Prison, and local U.S. Attorney's Office also went in or execute the administrative process. So it's all regulator favor Democrat. Yeah. So I think that they're readying up the ground for clemency. Trump allies have expressed interest in Maxwell. Trump have never ruled out clemency, he told the Spectator in 2023. I've met her numerous times. I wish her well. Maxwell's brother reportedly tried lobbying for a release and political symbolism is the daughter of James Comey. So there's no direct evidence that Trump plans to pardon her, but he says he didn't say no, you know. In fact, recently he says, you know, let's I forget the exact word that he used, but so the point is this. The first point is this. She might be a candidate for clemency. The president could do it. And the reason we're saying that is because the lawyer that prosecuted her is gone, has been fired. Because one thing you don't want is clemency, and then she starts fumbling around and say, what do you mean clemency? She's guilty. Do you know what she did? What are you doing? And you don't want someone like that in the middle while you're trying to, you know, get this thing away. Because at the end of the day, what Trump needs to do, and this is extremely important, Trump needs to get this thing to go away. Never mind if he's guilty or not guilty. Hi, Valerie. It doesn't matter if she's guilty or not guilty, right? I mean, I'm sorry, if Trump is guilty or not guilty. The point is, the more we talk about it and the more this thing stays up, the less Trump can talk about other things. And he's talking about a lot of that's if guilty go. Well, yeah. But we don't know. But the point is that he's already guilty in some ways that we're talking about it. He didn't want to talk about it. Remember, he told the Pam Bondi, that's enough. I don't want to talk about this woman anymore. And yet, we are back talking about it. And not just, me talking about it. Recently, I will tell you that she got the visit of, what's his name? The Todd Blanche. Todd Blanche went over there. I'm sure you heard the news, right? I'm not here to report the news. And she was granted some slight immunity. But she answered question and listens to this about 100 individuals. Okay? So she said, yeah, this, yes, that guy, that guy, that guy, that guy. Yeah, all these people. The interview was conducted on the directive reported linked to GOP pressure, including the Trump base. The MAGA people want to know what the heck is going on here. And they are pushing for it. They have raised, of course, and to make things even more, do people think that a pedophile will be granted immunity or clemency? Well, let's put it this way. They have fired the daughter of James Comey, who was a prosecutor against Maxwell, and she got fired recently. We don't know exactly why. It was not given. He's got the right to fire anybody he wants. The thing is, the possibility is the reason they're doing it is because if they decide to give her clemency, then she may say she might have too much information, right? First she's going to go bonkers, first of all, and it would be a big problem for her to say something like that. So that in itself is a problem. And you know, when she left, she was, she was very unhappy, obviously. But Epstein, on the way out, Ghislaine Maxwell, basically, what she's saying is she's saying that I will answer Congress's questions, and Congress wants her to talk if I get immunity or clemency. Because obviously, if she start talking and she's oh, you didn't say that we didn't know you did this. Okay, well, let's add another 10 years. She said, no, whatever I'm going to say, you cannot held against me. And it would be nice if I could get clemency. And then I'll be more than happy to talk. So she did that's a big so now they met with her, they talked to her. Now Congress is going to come back and we're going to have to hear about it. We're going to have to talk about it. We're going to have to hear what she wants, what she knows, and what she doesn't know. She talked to about 100 people. Now, of course, the question is this. Okay, so this guy Blanche, by the way, who is he's the assistant, he's the deputy attorney general. Pam Bondi is sick. We haven't heard from her recently. So let's see what that really means. But anyway, she's not around. The interview was conducted on direct report. So Todd Blanche, who works for the Department of Attorney General, has ethical consideration and conflict of interest, since he previously represented Trump before and received substantial donation from Trump's aligned PAC. So the way it worked is this. Okay, you know what? I don't want to talk about it. Well, we have to talk about it. Okay, then you know what Trump said? Go ahead, interview the woman, and let me know what happened, obviously. Right? I don't want any big surprises. And the guy that goes over there is a Trump guy. And she's saying, yeah, sure. Almost, I'll say whatever you want at the end of the day, as long as I get off. I mean, we don't know the woman that well, but based on what she supposedly have done and was convicted of and the people she was with, and I will tell you that, what's his name, is not the most, Epstein himself, never mind what he did, the girls and all that. Himself, it was not a good person, and she was, meaning that he basically, and it's unusual because his parents were not like that. It was simple people working in New York City in Department of Corrections, whatever, very, very normal jobs. But he actually lied on his first job. He was a teacher, and he wasn't. He got the position. He got involved in at some point he was making lots of money and got involved in Ponzi schemes. And the fact that she was with a guy like that, she's saying, well, I didn't know what he was. It was the worst thing that happened to me. I should have never met with him. I should have never done anything. I didn't know anything. Give me clemency. And I say, basically, she'll say anything you want. And frankly, at the end of the day, Trump has the power to do it. He's got the people there. And she obviously is inclined, whatever she's going to say, that Trump has nothing to do with anything. Let's move on. And by the way, I want to be freed. Can this happen? Can this actually happen? Well, if Trump is pretty confident that she doesn't have anything or she doesn't know anything and he'll be absolved, why not? And that's why they want her out. Of course, you're going to say, well, that would never happen. Listen, you know what happened yesterday with Trump and India? He basically insulted both of them insulted India, say, I'm going to charge you 25% on top of everything else because you're dealing with Putin, and I don't want anybody to deal with him because he doesn't want to stop the war. I mean, these are very strong statements he's making, and we'll talk about that at another live. But these are strong statements he's making, and frankly, you got to be careful. And now, she potentially gets away with it. Now, the question is this. What happens if it doesn't go Trump's way? What is the risk that Trump is taking here, right? Let's say she talks and it doesn't work. And most importantly, what does she know? Because don't forget, the trial itself was really about her, because people will wonder, well, nobody else is guilty? Well, nobody was trialed. It was just her. So she didn't talk about all the things. She may still hold significant information that she did not divulge during the trial, either because it was legally inadmissible, strategically with her. Lawyers say, no, we don't have to talk about that. And this guy was there, but we don't talk about that. That's nothing to do with you. We're trying to say that basically you didn't know what was going on. Obviously, if because she came across as she didn't know what was going on, basically. I was there and the girls were there. I mean, I didn't know anything, and I got 20 years. Now, obviously, she cannot say, well, he was there and he was there and he was there. Well, then you know what was going on. You see? Do you see the thing? Yeah, if she knows what's going on, then she's even more guilty. But if she doesn't know anything, because that's her point, I just showed up and, all these things happened, I didn't know. But now somehow she knows all these people, because obviously she knows the people that were there. But it's hard to believe that she didn't know any of these people. But the point is, there were 9 of high-profile associated clients. Maxwell never publicly named individuals who participated or benefited. He never mentioned anyone who were present at the Epstein property, who appeared on the flight logs. And we know that, like, Bill Clinton took that plane. I don't know exactly what happened over there to that island. Why was it withheld? Because the prosecutor limited the scope to Maxwell. Naming unidentified people could trigger defamation suits or mistrial. So the names could not be mentioned. But now, let's mention it. Trump must release her and Diddy. She has the ability. In fact, he's talking about releasing Diddy as well. Bill Clinton and Trump were out there constantly. Yes. Well, we're out there. I don't know what you mean by out there, GM. I mean, Bill Clinton was on that plane. He was on the manifest, right? Trump, I don't think, was on that plane. But he was there with the 2 freaks. The freakouts. Right? So he's thinking about releasing P. Diddy as well. He's also thinking, I can't believe we're talking about that, but and this is happening, coffee is going to get a lot more expensive, my friends. And I want you to know that. Coffee is going to be a lot more expensive. And you know why? Because now Trump is charging Brazil 50% because Brazil is actually going after the previous president who actually was not, they're going after the former president of Brazil. So that's going to be a lot of money, right? 50%, and it's happening, 50% tariffs on Brazil. So your coffee is going to get a lot more expensive. And meat, I mean, the U.S. doesn't do a tremendous amount of business with Brazil. It does business really in terms of imports. It does business with Europe, China, Canada, and Mexico. Brazil. But the point is, whatever coffee you're going to get, it's going to be more expensive. So the point is this. What did she know? Blackmail, material, and surveillance. There is a long speculation that Epstein and Maxwell secretly recorded guests. All the video monitoring device, tapes, CDs, photos, all of that stuff. And don't forget, that guy Blanche, when he was over there a couple of days ago, recorded 9 hours. You're going to say, well, what did she say? Well, I'm going to release that on time. So, could you at least tell us what she told you? I can't talk about it right now. Because she told them a bunch of things, right? So, international ties and intelligence links. Some investigating journalists and former intelligence officials have suggested that Epstein is possibly Maxwell at intelligence connection. Now, if you look at the history of Epstein, he started with nothing, literally. He started with nothing. He had nothing. He started as a teacher, which he lied, get involved with some girls there, whatever. Then got involved with Bear Stearns, got a job at Bear Stearns, moved up, got connections, made some money, got involved in more business. And then somehow the head of Limited, Limited, the store, gave him total control over his money. Okay? So that's a lot of damage right there. Why would a man give somebody else total control over his money? And Epstein, for someone who started with nothing, and we don't actually, I don't know who's going to be inheriting all of his money, but he has a lot of money. I mean, he used to have a lot of money. We're talking millions of dollars, houses, okay? At his death, he was valued at $500 million. $195 million in hedged private equity investment, $56 million in cash, $130 million in estate, $18 million in plane, $200 million in financial assets. How do you make that money? Well, he was a good, successful, smart guy. Yeah, he did a few things on options and things like that. But the fact is, when you have that much money in that much different in cash, in real estate, in plane, in cars, and boats, that feels to me gifts, right? Into dressing, That's a lot of money given for a lot of people. The point is very noisy, right? For some woman that didn't know anything and supposedly nothing happened, let's put it this way. This guy had a tremendous amount of money very quickly, right? In 20 years, he got about himself $570 million. He's a smart guy. He did a bunch of things, but he must have known a lot of things for a lot of people. And for someone which has nothing to do with investments, really, like the Limited, to give him complete power of attorney. And they said there were things going on that boat or whatever, but let's not even go there. The point is that there's a lot of things that have not been said that needs to be said, and this is what the MAGA people want to know. Trump brags into going into the dressing room of young girls. Well, hold on. I mean, obviously you like to party, but I don't know if he actually did all these things. So let's not spread the wrong rumors here. But the point is that he was involved. There's a lot of stuff here. And she spoke to about 100 people recently to that guy Blanche, who happens to be a Trump appointee and also Trump benefited from Trump. So a Trump friend, basically. And he must have called him and said, okay, did she say anything? Do I need to worry about anything? So the thing is, besides all this, and by the thing that she knows, right, involves high profile, blackmail material, international ties. They may be involved with the Mossad or whatever, operations in other countries, financial networks and sponsors. Epstein's wealth origin remain murky. I know. When I looked at this profile yesterday, I said, that's great. A guy that does this, I don't think he graduated from anywhere, frankly. And yet he got very successful doing a bunch of different things with a bunch of different people. And he's basically murky. The true source of Epstein funding, where did he get the money? The details of the trust. Where, like, for example, right now, right? All the money that he has, he died. His brother didn't get anything, supposedly. His parents are all dead, unfortunately. And we don't know exactly, who's getting what. I mean, obviously there was a compensation fund for the families and the girls or whatever. But still, for example, the Attorney General in U.S. Virgin Islands sued the estate in 2020, alleging it was a criminal enterprise used to traffic and exploit women and girls. The estate paid about $105 million, future earnings from any potential imp-snaking assets. So there's a lot of assets being moved around, being exchanged. This is very, very, very murky. She's already in prison, and she's so worried. She's afraid of the wrong people. Well, be careful. Now, anything happens to her now, and we're off to the races. She falls down, she breaks her neck, it's over. We're going to talk about this 24/7. So we're talking lots of money, lots of people, lots of unanswered questions. A president that is now, first had said, I want to talk about it, and now is saying, okay, let's talk about it. In fact, you know what? Let's get a bipartisan, because that's exactly what you have, right? basically both sides say, yeah, we want to hear about it. Let's bring it up. We want to talk about this stuff. Obviously, what are they going to say? I don't want to hear about it. No, it's too late. Now, what can Congress actually do, right? What can Congress do? Congress has broad investigating powers under the Constitution, and it can compel the release of documents, right? They say, I want to see the documents, everything. The thing is, the document themselves might not be enough because her prosecution was very narrow. What's more important is what she didn't tell what she did not tell during the trial. That's what you want to hear. That's what you want. You want to know what she told that guy for 9 hours a couple of days ago. Maybe she could tell you where some of the tapes are or whatever. That's what you want to do. Now, again, Congress can say prosecution records, indictment, sentencing, memoranda, trial exhibits, Epstein and Maxwell client or co-conspirator information, any DOJ or FBI alleged client or co-conspirators. We could do that. We could give you that. Don't forget to join this channel. I talk about Epstein today, but I'm also talking about a lot of topics that everyone should be worried about, right? Talk about the economy. Talk about the stock market. Talk about the dollar. Talk about the tariffs. I'm going to talk about the tariff, what they did to India. I think he upset India recently with the 24% tariffs and said things very derogatory against India, which I wouldn't say he's out of control, but I mean, he's got it, and he's got the power, and he's running with it, and he's running as fast as he can because he's running out of time, I feel that this man is running out of time. Doing a great job so far, but let's see what happens. Let's see the consequences. Trump versus Powell. We need to talk about Powell. I'm going to tell you that there were probably more than 2 dissent yesterday for the rates, which obviously they didn't lower the rates, so that's going to impact the fact that your mortgage is going to be still high, and that's going to be a problem. The point is that there may have been 3 dissents, 3 out of 12 people. That's the first time that there was been 2 dissent in 30 years. 3 dissents, forget about it. And we're going to find out. They're going to release it. So that's a huge problem. That's a huge problem because the economy might be slowing down as we speak. A little bit discussion on the Powell situation and the Trump and the rates. What you need to know and what I want you to realize, well, you know, obviously that we didn't lower the rates yesterday, which impacts your mortgage and everything else. But 2 to 3 of the 2 governors and 1 president may have said, we don't agree. And that's the first time in 30 years this has happened. And coincidentally, all of the people that said yes were from the Biden side. Very politically charged. Most of them were. And, of course, what they're worrying about is what happens next. And that's a question everybody needs to ask. You need to wonder and ask yourself, what happens next? Because they're saying, no, it's not political. Look at the numbers. Look at the unemployment. You know, it's okay. Employment is okay. Economy is okay. Well, yeah, when you look at the rate of unemployment in the U.S., yes. But once you look at deep down, I don't know if you know anyone that's looking for a job right now. I know a lot of students that are looking for a job. I know a lot of people that are looking for a job. They're not finding those jobs, okay? And so it's at a lower level that you need to look at. You need to look at what's going on underneath, the details. There's some weaknesses. The ADP number came out yesterday. Last week it was very weak. Last month it was very weak. There's some pockets of, but then they don't have to. They just no. Just look at the big picture. Let's look at the big picture. Everybody's got a job. We're fine. So, and that's what's happening. That could be a lot of damage at some point. Then we're going to need to talk about Israel and Iran because that's a powder cake right now. China is decoupling. I'm going to talk about this a couple of days from now. Inflation watch. Where is the inflation? Well, I could tell you right now that Amazon has been raising its prices. Okay, so inflation is coming through. Russia. That's what happened yesterday, right? Basically, he's telling Russia, that's it. You have 10 days, no more. Otherwise, I'm going after your guys, and I'm telling them that, in fact, I'm already going after India because they're helping you. So that's a lot of damage coming up. Okay, so back to Congress. So what else Congress can do? Congress can demand the FBI 302 reports, basically all of the interviews. They could seal the court filing and deposit. They could go to the Bureau of Prison and record the visitor's log, the communication. This thing could go on for years if they really want to find out. But are you telling me that all these people involved have nothing, no one has nothing to do with anything? Inflation is not good, I agree. Democrats, she should be given immunity. There's bigger fish to catch on this case. Yes, I agree with Daniel. Give her immunity and let's find out what happened. Oh, no, but that's not fair because of what she did. Well, then let's not, but then don't do anything then. Oh, no, but that's not fair either because we want to know what's happening. You're not going to have it both ways. She's not going to do all this and then for free and then not come out. Because I will tell you right now, okay, that basically, given Maxwell says, she'd answer Congress's questions if she gets immunity or clemency. Clemency would be best, obviously. She won't answer the lawmaker's question about her dealing because obviously if she start talking and she said, I saw this guy doing this and you didn't do anything, well, then you're guilty of that too. In a letter, Maxwell's lawyer, David Marcus, said she would appear only after resolving her appeal of a sex trafficking conviction before the Supreme Court. Obviously, the lawyer is saying, hey, I'm smelling blood here. I am not giving this stuff away for free. She's not going. What, you want her to go in and talk about it for no reason? And this thing is huge. Why is it huge? I will tell you what could happen here. What could be the impact on Donald Trump if Maxwell testimony were to include new or damaging revelation? Forget it if it's directly on them. But the impact on Donald Trump could be significant politically, legally, reputationally, depending on the context and collaboration. What are we talking about? Well, if she were to testify that Trump attended or participated in events involving trafficking network, whatever events meant, I mean, he was there was a bunch of girls, there was a bunch of people, there was a bunch of lawyers, and he was there. He was aware or helped cover up the criminal behavior or deeper ties to Epstein than previously known. And we know that Trump exaggerates all the time when he says yes, but also when he says no. Then there will be a legal impact. However, statute of limitation, lack of collaboration could limit legal exposure. He's not going to go to jail, but the point is the political impact is going to be huge. It could erode the support, and that's something that I've said all along. It could erode the support among independents and moderates. I don't think you realize, right? In this channel, don't forget to subscribe, by the way. In this channel, we're following 10 risks that are going to impact the stock market, your life. And I'm not just describing the information, I'm also trying to analyze it for you so you understand what's really going on and the risk that you're running. All of these things are tied to Trump. The economy is tied to Trump. The stock market is tied to Trump. He crashed it because of originally when he talked about the tariffs, people say, what do you mean you're going to tariff 100 people? Then the dollar, he wants a weak dollar. Technically, yes, that's good when you have a weak dollar because if you're overseas and you're buying in this country, that is a good thing because it's cheaper. But if the dollar is weak, who wants it? Right now, believe it or not, and I'll do a video on that too, or live on that. If you're in Europe and you're buying the stock market in the US, you're losing money because the dollar lost value against the euro, okay? He's involved with Powell, obviously. He hates the guy. He wants him out. In fact, he wants him to leave right away. I think they're pressuring him right now. Iran, Israel, he almost went to war with Iran in a big way. China, he's pissing off the Chinese, right? Because the Chinese have deflation, right? They need to get rid of their stuff, and they can't get rid of it. There's no statute limit. Inflation, well, I mean, the whole thing with the tariffs is inflationary, although we are not seeing it. We shall see. And then Russia. I mean, now is Russia. He's going after Russia. So Trump is able to do all of these things, right? Saying I'm going to charge 50% the tariffs on Brazil, although technically speaking, you can't do whatever you want. Okay, why would a Russian give immunity to a clear abuser? Well, because we need to put this thing to bed, right? And that's the issue. There's going to be lots of issues surrounding this thing, and Trump, if he loses because of whatever she says or whatever happened with the Epstein situation, he loses his base. Because right now he's acting, I wouldn't say like an emperor or king, but he's frankly doing basically saying and doing whatever he wants. He's out there negotiating with the Europeans in a room and saying, fine, 750 billion and 15%. I mean, hey, more power to the guy. I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm just saying that, well, you're taking a lot on yourself, right? Because when you say 750 billion, 250 billion a year with the European, these people don't actually use that much to begin with. So we may not need 250 billion. We may need probably, you may not get them to get that much. So you have to be aware of that. Okay. So let's be careful. Let's make sure we don't get out of the way the fact that at the end of the day, the thing with Trump is that he may actually lose his power because of her, and that's something that I'm very concerned about. I'm always concerned that if he loses that power, you know what happens? All this falls down. The house of cards falls down, and if I know that, they know that too. They know that if they can't put this thing to bed very, very quick, what's going to happen? He's going to lose control over everything. What do I mean by lose control? With the Japanese, the thing with the $600 billion for the Japanese, guess what? They said, well, I am not giving you $600 billion in cash, right? I mean, we negotiated this in 70 minutes. Yes, 15%, $600 billion, we'll invest it, but I'm concerned that you may not be able to think that somehow I'm not giving you $600 billion. So what's going to happen with Trump is that if he loses power from the MAGA people, then the Japanese are going to say, well, you know what? We're not going to really follow up on this $600 billion. Anyway, nothing is written anyway. So these people are going to quickly disappear, and you're not going to get $600 billion. And that's a concern, and Trump knows it. He said, we got to put this woman to bed. And if he has to give her clemency, so she goes away, and then they say, see, I wasn't involved, okay? Right. She opens everything, okay? Can we move on now? Now, everybody's going to be pissed, of course, because I see somebody said the fact that, she's a child abuser or whatever. Yeah, but what about all the other thing that Trump is doing and gets away with it? This will be just one more thing. And on top of that, if he lets PDD go, he's a good guy. He's, let everybody go off the book. I mean, Biden, on his way out, forgive a bunch of people, including his son. He was forgiving everyone here. If there's something that would never be the only thing that came out, well, we shall see. We shall see. So the point is, we have direct allegations, media, public, civil liability, and witnesses. If it will be a mess. I'm telling you right now, if that comes through. Okay, Epstein money, lots of money, $577 million. Nobody makes $577 million just like that, and without having a fund to talk about. It very murky. So there's something else going on. So what's going to happen is they're going to want to know from her, what is it that you know? But more importantly, what is it that you know and you didn't talk? But frankly, she just spent 100 hours with that guy at the Attorney General, right? The blind. She went there, and 9 hours. Now, what's interesting is, where's his boss? Pandi. What's her name? The Attorney General. He's out there. Keep her in prison for the rest of her life. Well, I don't know. Because on one hand, you want to know what's happening. You want to know, right? The MAGA people want to know. Well, if you want to know, I mean, you got to ask her because everybody else is dead, unless you ask people that were involved, but they're not going to say anything, right? But it would be okay with immunity on items that are forthcoming. Yeah, I mean, but the thing is, on one hand, you want to know, right? On the other hand, you don't want to let her be, and she's going to say, "What? I'm going to come in and do this, and then go back for jail for 20 years." I know very well how important this thing is for you people. I want to get paid for that. I'm not such a good person. So we shall see. But I think that could be a problem. Now, the reason why I think there's going to be clemency, well, at least there's a clemency hint, it is very plausible that Maureen Comey, by the way, she prosecuted her. Now, in an amazing circumstance, Maureen Comey is a daughter of James Comey, which Trump hates. But the point is that she's involved. She basically got fired, and the idea is that she might have been seen as a roadblock to a potential clemency. Now, don't forget the way these people think, right? I mean, you're getting the information as it comes along, but they're already thinking 2 to 3 to 4 steps ahead. If I'm Trump or anybody close to him, involved or not involved, I'm going to say, listen, this thing is not going to go away. And we need the MAGA people, otherwise you won't be able to get away with all the things that you're doing, which some of them are good for the U.S. I mean, let's not, fool ourselves. But this woman is not going to talk for free, okay? You try to call it down, but the MAGA people, they want to know, and you have to respect what they want. Pam Bondi, there is no list. That's it. Have you heard from Pam Bondi recently? She got hurt in the eye and she's disappeared. Okay? So they're probably reviewing right now the list. They're wondering what's going on with that list. What is in that list? And frankly, we don't know what's in the list. But 100 people are noted in that list. 100 names. Who are the names? So we know them. So tell us, Blanche, you went there for 9 hours. The thing is, he needs to talk about it a little bit more before he releases or talks about it, and then we need to hear from her as well. So it's a problem that is going to turn into a situation that could turn into a disaster. And this woman, believe it or not, is going to impact all of us in an incredible kind of way. Why? Because she's tying up Trump's hand if it doesn't work out the way it's supposed to be. And I'm telling you right now, even if she doesn't say anything, the fact that we're talking about it is sucking the air out of the room right now. Don't forget, you don't hear too much about it because Congress is out. Once they're back, because Congress said, yes, we want to know, all of us, both of us, Republican, Democrat, tell us. But not right now. We need to take off for a while and think about it. Right? So basically, she's blackmailing the entire. Patricia is right. There's blackmail going on here. Blackmail all around. Yes. So, and what you want to know is what is going to happen at the end. What are we going to do with that information? It will impact you. It will impact the stock market, right? Why? Because if she comes out and Trump has a problem, and then he loses control over Powell, and Powell says, you know what, this guy is weak, I'm not quitting, and I'm going to, again, because I believe that Powell, quite frankly, I mean, the employment is not as strong as it used to be, and he knows it, and we all know it, that what's happening is the fact that it takes 16 months, 12 to 16 months for whatever rate thing you're going to do to positively impact the economy if the economy is on its way down. So there's a lot of things happening here, right? So as it's going down, we need to do something. Well, no, don't do anything because it's not really going down. We need to see the numbers. But they know that by the time you see the numbers, the employment numbers or the economy slowing down, it's going to be too late. And that's why these two guys a guy and a woman over at the Fed basically said, no, we don't agree. We should do something about it. what's his name? And then they may have been more than 2 dissents. They may have been 3 dissents. So we have to be very careful. So we need to understand what's going on here. And if you think that this thing is going sideways, watch the stock market, watch the tariffs, watch all of the things that Trump said that he would be able to control, because frankly, he's controlling everything, right? I mean, the reason why GM, for example, took a hit of $1 billion because of the tariffs, meaning that they took in the cost of the tariffs, and we'll talk about that later on this week. He took in the costs because he doesn't know what's going to be the impact on the consumer. You don't want to start raising prices, lowering prices, but more importantly, he doesn't want Trump to give him a call and say, what are you doing? You're supposed to help me with inflation. You're not helping me with inflation. You're just making my life more miserable. And look, GM is not worrying about the people's welfare. You know what I mean? They don't want to hear that thing. I think they all hope that Trump goes away after a while and they could go back to business. But unfortunately, no, because now you have to sign these agreements. So that could impact. That could impact tremendously the economy. And of course, with Israel, I mean, it's all well known now, and again, I'll do something live on that Netanyahu is out of control, and he wants to keep fighting. And Trump is able to control him, but if he sees that Trump has loses his power, he says, I'll do what I want. So this whole thing, believe it or not, rely on this woman. So they need to resolve this thing as soon as possible. But how can you resolve it? She's going to say, I want to be free. I don't want to be in jail anymore. Because you know what? I was kind of forced into this situation, right? Maxwell was responding to a subpoena for a testimony from the committee. So the thing is, they could bring her in, force her in, and say, no, you're going to come in and we're not going to give you immunity. But what's going to happen? But without the requested assurance, Marcus, our lawyer, said that Maxwell would invoke a Fifth Amendment right against self-incrimination. Hey, recently, I don't know if you followed that, but former doctor, not to bring Joe Biden into the fray, but Joe Biden's doctor was brought into Congress, and they asked him, hey, did you know he was sick? Or something to that effect. Did you know that he was not well? And he says, well, under the thing of the Fifth Amendment, I can't talk about it. So, yeah, Congress say I want to in, but also Congress say I don't want to give up notice. Then you're going to bring for no reason, because if you don't give her absolution, or if you don't give her, if you don't forgive her, she's not going to say anything. I'm just going to say, well, you could force me to talk, but then I'm going to be in contempt of court, and I want contempt of Congress, technically. Which, by the way, a guy that was in that was Congress and went to jail for 4 months was Pete Navarro. Remember Pete Navarro? Pete Navarro is a guy that created the whole situation with the tariffs. And Trump is very responsive to that. Anyway, so the Trump administration had come under strong criticism after releasing a memo saying he didn't intend to make public any further information from the FBI. Right? Remember that letter that came out? So that said, there's nothing to see here. This is to show you the power of the MAGA people who say, no. You're going to come out. Then we're going to bring everyone in Congress. And then we're going to go interview her. And then we're going to bring her in. And then if we have to, we may have to give her clemency. We need to put this thing to bed. So that's the power of MAGA people. I mean, when the MAGA people are very, very strong. Pam Bondi appears multiple times in the document. The Wall Street Journal have reported it. Many other high-profile figures have also been named. Being mentioned is a file doesn't mean that you're wrong, but a lot of people are being mentioned, including Trump. Bondi and the Deputy General Todd Blanche, he's a guy that went to see her, wanted further investigation or prosecution. As part of our routine briefing, we made the president aware of the findings. So they have asked the judge to unseal the grand jury, and they said nope. So Blanche went to Florida to interview Maxwell, and he spoke to Maxwell for 9 hours after receiving conditional immunity to discuss the case for those 9 hours. This is legal stuff. This isn't a MAGA only thing. No, correct. It's not the MAGA only thing, right? Everybody wants to know, but MAGA the Trump is concerned about MAGA. Trump would have said, no, we're not doing anything. Let's move on. And they said, no, we're not moving on. We need to know. So Marcus, and the reason they want to know is because they know there's probably people on the other side, on the Democratic side, that are going to be named. I bet you that's what it is. I mean, imagine you going, you. Don't forget, next year they're going. The Congress votes. It starts all over again. If you know that your compadre or your guy that you're competing is going to be in that list, you're going to say, hey, he's on that list too. So I guess I should be elected. This is huge potential here. Huge potential. Marcus estimated that she answered questions about roughly 100 different people. For 9 hours, he talked to her. Maybe she doesn't even need to go to Congress. She could just listen to what she has to say. And she did not hold back anything back. Blanche said that the Justice Department would share information about their interview at the appropriate time. So you're not going to know for a while. So right now, that's what they're doing right now. Right now, they are weighting the pluses and the minuses, and what they know and don't know, and who they know, did what to whom. I mean, they know. Okay. So they are weighting the pluses and the minuses. Okay. But at the end of the day, for Trump, he needs to be staying clear of MAGA. And if he hasn't done anything, I mean, not that he needed that. He could. We had all the money in the world, frankly. He needs it to go away. And for him to go away, you just give her clemency because he knows that there's nothing to worry about, and therefore let her talk. Let her talk. The thing is, there may be people around Trump that say, I can't. My name is going to come out. So then you have this back and forth that you're seeing right now, which is we've heard 9 hours, we've heard 100 people, but we're going to tell you right now, not at the appropriate time. Let's wait and wait and wait and wait. Now it all depends how it's being used, right? Because the Democrats can certainly use this against them because say, hey, we haven't heard anything. What's going on? You guys don't want to talk about it. I mean, this is exactly what the what's his name, Jeffrey there, the guy, not Jeffrey Epstein, the guy, the Democrat chair, right? He basically wants to know what's going on. He says, do you have anything to hide? Because obviously he had nothing to hide. He wasn't invited to these parties. So that's going to be difficult, and it's going to go on because no one really wants to talk about it, but you need to show the effort to talk about it, so they're going to keep talking about it without actually coming out with something. No, having said that, Trump is the kind of guy that says, listen, I got to move on with this. Otherwise, I can't get anything done. And therefore, what I'm going to have to do is, I'm sorry you're a part of those names, but I'm going to give her clemency and let her talk. I mean, Trump doesn't get personal, quite frankly. If it becomes an impediment against him and the MAGA people, he's going to let you go. So we are, Dwayne says it's disgusting that we haven't been told who's involved in it. Well, the reason why you did not know is because when she went to trial, they basically trialed her. They didn't try the whole case. They didn't try the situation. They trialed her. And she was basically, but I don't know anything. In fact, she says that the only error that she made was to basically saying that my mistake was to meet him. And obviously there was no one involved because I don't know what's going on. Now, obviously what's I think interesting is now she's willing to talk. And that's what she's saying. I want immunity because now I'm going to say things that I didn't say before. But the reason I didn't say it before because I didn't want to get 40 years. So she obviously knows things. I mean, you have to believe that she was with him all the time, right? And this guy was involved in some pretty interesting stuff because he made money in a very kind of weird way. I mean, he was involved in Ponzi schemes. He was involved in lying to, forget the girls, I mean, other things. And he got somehow the head of, what's that company? The Limited gave him total access to his funds. He could do whatever. He had power of attorney. Who does this? Unless you have something on someone, Nobody gives you power of attorney. But I thought you were a hedge fund manager. Now you are a wealth manager? What are you doing? You're all over the place, right? Exactly, because there's something else driving this business. And then maybe the business was driven because of what was going on and the tapes and the recording, and he was blackmailing everybody. So this could be a problem. Now, what the bipartisan said, that's recently, Representative Marcian kind of said they have enough vote to pass a measure seeking more information. They have to have the votes, because if you don't have the vote, that means that you have something to hide. Bipartisan pair of congressmen pushing for the release of files related to Jeffrey Epstein. They will continue to press the issue. So basically, you have Thomas Massie, from Republican from Kentucky, and Ro Khanna, a Democrat from California. They are writing up a petition to force a floor vote on legislation that would give attorney Pam Bondi 30 days to release the files related to Epstein. They want this thing. This is as of 2 days ago. They wanted to release. It would force a full release of the files. Under House rules, if the petition is signed by the majority of the lawmaker, then they only need 11 people and they're done. So this thing is going to get released. And of course, it's kind of a snake that bites its own tail here, because eventually they're going to, vomit on it. Why? Because whatever happens is not going to be good. There is no way no one gets tainted, because now, you're going to get released. Your name is going to be out there. Your name is going to be out there. But I don't think Trump cares about that. Trump cares only one thing. He wants to make sure that all of these things that he's managing, and this is what this channel is about, right? And take a look at my Patreon channel, by the way. Yeah, if you want to make some money in stocks. I mean, this channel is really a risk channel. The reason I'm talking about Ghislaine Maxwell, not that I care particularly about what went on in those places and the girls and all that. It's a little bit of a comical situation, but what I care about is it's a risk, because it impacts Trump's ability to do what he wants to do, and because Trump's involved in all of these things into a minute amount of details. Now, what I mean by that is Trump is literally doing the deal himself, right? He negotiated with that woman in Europe. He negotiated with the Japanese guy for 70 minutes, and he said, okay, 15% for you and $600 million for me. So the reason we want to talk about this in this channel is because we're monitoring 10 very, very, very strong risks, right? We're looking at the economy, which so far, yesterday we had some released numbers that the economy GDP was up 3%, but although it was down 0.5% in the first quarter. We're looking at the stock market, which is overvalued right now. So Trump loses his power. Trump cannot control this situation, and this thing goes south. The market is extremely overvalued right now. In fact, it is as highly valued as it was in 2000, and we all remember how that ended up. Okay. Now, of course, right now the difference is this. This has to do with AI as opposed to .com. Okay. So that's what we're doing right now. Then, of course, you've got the tariffs. I mean, Trump literally told India, I am going to tax you 25% because of your involvement. I am not kidding you. And no, don't just to be clear here, Trump really does not have the power, technically speaking, to actually dictate and decide on these tariffs, right? The tariffs are something very particular. You can't just decide. You need certain powers to do it, and the Congress gave it to Trump. But now it's going to have to end at some point, okay? So then Trump is involved with Powell as well, right? He's trying to get this guy out of the way. And if he loses power, he's going to say, Israel again and all these. So this channel is about understanding all the risks that we're facing, because frankly, we've got quite a few. We've got quite a few risks. Now, Epstein So the bipartisan, basically, they want to know. So what are we talking about? We're talking they would give Pam Bondi 30 days to release the files once the vote comes in. So this is what, July, August? By September, that woman is talking. The thing is, she doesn't want to talk unless she gets full immunity and potentially clemency. Question about the being exploded inside the GOP. A vote could put the Republican in an uncomfortable position of having to decide whether to support having the files released or defying President Trump, or risk alienating voter who wants more transparency. This thing is very messy. It's a reckless way that is drafted and presented. It doesn't protect the victims. So obviously people are saying, but you're going to release everything. The name of the victim is going to be released to everyone. How are you going to manage that? Maybe we're going to do it in closed door. But if you do it in closed door, we don't know what's going on. So whichever one you want, it's going to be a problem. And I think Trump is looking at this. He says, how am I going to fix this? Now, Funk, so far, you should know that Trump, the way he has acted in a very forceful manner, he has acted in a very forceful manner with Israel when he told Netanyahu, this is it, we're stopping. We're not fighting anymore because, frankly, I'm running out of weapons to give you and missiles. He acted very forceful with NATO when he told them, you're going to be spending 5% like I do. And they did, and they're calling him daddy. He went forceful after all those universities, which are now paying him a lot of money to be able to get money from the government and be in his good graces. Forget the tariffs. I mean, the tariffs are amazing that he's able to actually get away with it. And so far, the market, let me give you just, let you know what's happening with the market is not doing much of anything. The market didn't do anything this morning. But the point is, he is literally negotiating. And today, what Trump is doing, he's because Mexico needs to talk about it, right? Brazil, Trump, like Canada, for example. I mean, it's moving and so fast that Canada's support for Palestinian state makes the trade deal very hard. That's a new thing with Canada now. We should do a video on that because President Trump cast doubt on reaching an agreement with Canada Prime Minister Comey because he planned to recognize the Palestinian state, because that's the other thing that's happening. France is recognizing Palestine. UK is saying, well, maybe we should recognize Palestine. And now Canada is saying, and Canada has just announced that it's backing statehood for Palestine. This will make it very hard for us to make a trade deal with them. But hold on. I'm confused. What does that have to do literally with the tea in China? What does that have to do with the fact that they're recognizing Palestine and the fact that you want to, hidden mice? All right. Canada moved to contingent on the Palestinian Authority, reforming its governance structure and holding general election next year in which Hamas plays no role. He described negotiation with the U.S. as complex, as it might not be concluded by August 1st, so therefore you're going to get hit with 30%. And now, of course, Trump is saying, you know what, on top of everything else, now you're going to recognize Palestine. You can't do that. And that's what I mean when I said that Trump is involved in every single facet of this thing. And at the end of the day, from a risk perspective, I would say that this is very risky. It is very risky to have someone that involved in everything and having that much power over all of these topics and being involved in all of them individually. Right? They haven't acted like a peaceful state. Right? So, and technically speaking, Trump only has 4 powers that allow him to act on the tariffs. Let me remind you, what are the powers that he's given? What are the powers given to the president to set the tariffs? I don't think for the tariffs. I think there's like 4 of them, and they were voted over the past. The president of the United States has significant power to impose, adjust, or remove tariffs. Though the power is rooted in delegation from Congress. Okay, so he has the power, but he only has the power, for example, to impose tariff if the imports threaten national security. Is Canada recognizing Palestine and national security? Respond to unfair foreign trade practices? No, that doesn't match. Regulate trade during a declared national emergency? It is a national emergency that Canada is recognizing. Adjust tariffs to promote reciprocal trade agreement? This has nothing to do, regardless if you agree the Israeli-Palestinian situation. Canada is saying that they're going to recognize Palestine cannot be a reason for which you are going to say. Now, of course, he's not saying that. He just said, basically saying Canada has just announced that it is backing statehood. That will make it very hard for us to make a trade deal with them. Why not? This has nothing to do with any of the powers that you have, right? And that's a situation, right? When you get involved in everything and everyone, then you forget, where the boundaries are. The same he did that with Brazil, right? And with the president over there. He didn't like what went on with Del Sario, the fact that they want to go after him. So he's going after Brazil because they want to go with their previous president. And by the way, when the guy left and lost Brazil, he went to spend some time with Trump in Mar-a-Lago. I mean, it's right? I mean, it's all over the place at the same time. And this is a problem. Why? Because what's going to happen is now everything is on the... What I'm in this channel is about identify risk, and we've got like 10 of them, but Trump is the number one risk. And obviously this woman, if it doesn't work the way it's supposed to work, it's going to be a big problem because Trump is going to lose the power. And then, of course, if it impacts more the Republicans and the Democrats, then they're going to lose Congress coming up next year. And then Trump is a lame president, lame duck president. And then all these things, because right now, quite frankly, do you hear anyone saying anything about what he's doing? No one is saying, whoa, hold on, what do you mean Palestine? Like, can a Democrat rise up and say, but you can't say things like that? That's not a reason for you not to do business with Canada, because I don't think that it's national security, unless you think that by getting involved, by having Canada recognizing Palestine, it will impact our national security. I guess you could always make a case. You could make a case on everything. Don't forget, TACO. I'm not so sure about TACO anymore. Okay, that's how he drew you in all. Because the way Trump works in a very smart way, he shows you this. It's like three-card Monty, and it's happening here. You thought that he was not going to do anything, and he kept postponing and postponing. That's going to be an easy TACO thing. Not anymore. He is serious, and unfortunately, he is serious in a way that could be very dangerous, that could be destructive, that could be a tremendous amount of issues arising around it. Why? Well, because he's controlling everything. I mean, just alone, right? What he said today with India, right? I mean, you can't say things like that. You cannot say things like that, because what's going to happen is what did he say about India and Trump? He basically is going to charge them 25%. And today with Canada, he's saying, I am not going to do it. I'm not going to agree because you want to be with the Palestinian, so we're not going to deal with you anymore, or we're not going to give you. So you're going to get 30%. Now Canada is a big chunk of the U.S. in terms of. They need the U.S. 70% of the export is to the U.S. That's a lot. Can they keep doing it? I don't know. In fact, now, Trump tariff authority is tested in court as deadline in trade deal looms. Federal appeal judges are considering the legality of the... It's about time somebody does something, because You can't do these things. It's impossible. President Trump's agenda is entering a pivotal 2-day stretch with the administration moving to increase the tariffs on the import from several nations. August 1st is there. He doesn't have the power to levy tariff on this. He doesn't. Kevin is right. The only thing is, nobody's talking about that. Nobody's saying anything. I mean, in April, he outlined and described Liberation Day. We all know about that. But both elements of the Liberation Day tariffs are underpinned by the 1970 law, the International Emergency Economic Powers Act. I don't want to get technical on you guys, but you need to understand what's happening. Typically, tariffs are imposed, delegated to the power of Congress, like I just said. Teams invoke the little-used emergency authority to impose the bulk of the wide-ranging second-term tariffs. Of course, in May, the U.S. Court of International Trade ruled that the president had overstepped his authority. The U.S. Court of International Trade, they had a court, a global, institution that says, okay, this is how we're gonna direct tariffs. While a 3-judge panel voided Trump levies, the U.S. Court of Appeal for the Federal Circuit Court caused the ruling to buy itself time to consider the case. The full court will hear argument Thursday morning. We're not done yet with the tariffs. These tariffs might be repealed. The case, which combined challenges brought by a dozen states and a group of smaller business, is on a fast-track timeline. They would have to mount a barrage of argument. Any one of them would sink Trump's effort. So those tariffs that we've been talking, and don't forget, the reason why is that these needs to sort itself out. Canada, Scott Besson admitted that the provision, one big beautiful bill, is a mechanism for privatization of Social Security. Wow, that's another topic right there. The point is that Trump literally, and that's a fact, that he's negotiating those deals on his own. He spent 70 minutes with not even the president of Japan, or the prime minister of Japan, with the guy that's responsible for the negotiation, and he negotiated with him, and he got the agreement to get done like that. That's it. 15%. Well, when you make a deal is one thing, but when you don't do a deal for something that, frankly, you should not be able to, like 50% on Brazil, the challenges have mounted a barrage of arguments, any one of which could sink Trump efforts. Supposed that. And of course, if I know this, these people know that too. I'm trying to inform you as my subscribers, to explain to you what these people know, and they probably know that as well, that this is what's happening. Listen, this thing is not, maybe that's what they're saying. Yeah, whatever. Okay, 15%, you got it. This is never going to hold. Okay? And they said that there's no extraordinary threat to the U.S. that justifies invoking the law, and that his tariffs have no connection to the emergency he claims. They also said the Constitution limits the ability of Congress to delegate any tariff authority. The Congress is supposed to be doing, not him. The Justice Department, representing the Trump's administration, say in response that the text history give the president power to regulate imports. They say, no, you're wrong. It does. Let's see who decides. But I think everyone knows that basically he's going to go away either because this is not valid. Now imagine the tariffs are not valid. Imagine. Then what happens? Well, they all nullify. But frankly, I will tell you one thing. Don't get too upset, because frankly, out of all the deals that Trump has talked about, how many trade deals have actually been signed? Right. How many trade deals this year? How many trade deals? I believe that only 2 have been, what I mean signed, have been finalized. Because Trump could say, well, listen, I was just talking. I didn't do any deals. I mean, we're negotiating. Right? The U.S.-South Korea deal signed on July 30th. The trade deal with the European Union signed on July 27th. And that's it. Not that many deals have been signed yet. So they could say, listen, We don't have anything. We're just talking. We're just talking shop. We don't imagine 90 deals. It took in the past about 3 years to make a deal. So what's really going on here, folks, right? The first thing is this. You need to grasp the understanding that the way Trump is managing this whole process is he doing it on his own, and everyone else is pulling back. Now, how was he able to achieve something like that? Well, first of all, he got reelected. Second, he picked people that, frankly, are backing him up 100%. Those that don't, like the vice president, for example, at one point, were not really following him that closely when it came down to the war. Remember, he questioned it. And the third thing that he does is the technique that he uses, which is a good technique. I mean, so far as that's worked, is that he pushes right through. He's coercing the people. And why are they dealing with him? If you're Canada, you have no choice but to deal with him. Why? Because 70% of your exports goes to the U.S. You can't, Mexico, forget it. Europe also, they are being strong. The U.S. is a big import market for him, and he knows it. Now, of course, you're going to say, well, he's a bully in that case. That's possible. But it works. The thing is, what is the long-term consequence? What's going to happen after? What happens later on? What happens if that woman comes out and starts saying things that nobody likes? That's a problem. What is Ozzy saying? If New York doesn't have much strict per law, maybe Liz could have been saved. The fatigue is growing every day. Adrian, I dare you to upload content. Yeah, I mean, you have to be aware of that, and the reason you need to be aware of this is because all of this is going to have a huge impact on whatever you're doing. Now, what's this? My concern. This is what's going to happen. I don't want to bring it up, but the concern that I have is this. At some point, Trump loses control, right? Either he loses control because of his health, he loses control because of Ghislaine Maxwell, or he loses control because of the legality of what he's doing. They said, listen, you can't do that. You just can't do it. That's legally not right. And then they're going to fight it back and forth. He loses control, okay? The thing is, the gain that he's making could be all lost. Meaning all of these people, like, for example, let's talk about the tariffs. They will renege on all the tariffs. Okay, Japan has said the 600 billion is nothing, that's not something that I've agreed to. I mean, I never said, and I never said that in those key words, right? We're talking about $550 billion fund. But Japan has stated that only 1 to 2% of that 500 would be actual equity investments, while the rest consists of loans and loans guarantee. Return on the investment portion will be split 90 the US and 10% Japan, but it's mostly loans, right? Critics have basically said that this is a deal largely a rhetorical construct. It lacks firm commitment, and much of the capital may be tied up as loans rather than direct investments. Right? So, when that thing starts to collapse on its own weight, quite frankly, that could be an issue. The thing with Powell, I want lower rates. I want lower rates. The other guy wants the job, and maybe that's what he's saying. Let's get lower rates after all, right? Now, of course, with what's going on with Powell and the Federal Reserve is, well, how many of these people, frankly, are they biased, right? For example, they say that more than 2 of the Fed chair might have been biased. The stock market can fall and everyone invested in can be wiped. Listen to Avion Phillips, okay? The market is overvalued. Now, what I want for this channel really is I want to discuss the issues before they happen. I don't want to report the news after. I'm not a news organization. It doesn't make any sense. It's hundreds of people doing it. You want, hey, Joan, you want to report what is going to happen. That's the idea of a black swan. And I want you to subscribe to the channel so at least you're informed as to what the potential risk is. For example, right now, yesterday, you may probably don't realize that what two of the governors said no, there might have been a third one that said no. Not confirmed. You're going to find out. You're going to find out because they're going to release the letters, and you're going to find out very soon. So the Fed held in the interest rates study, which is good. Now, but the decision was accompanied by a report of unusually strong dissent. So the Fed itself is in turmoil. The tariffs in turmoil. The world's in turmoil. The Ghislaine thing is in turmoil, but the Fed is also in turmoil. The Fed chair acknowledged in the press conference that some governors favored a rate lower due to slow job growth and weakening manufacturing data. They said, well, then how come you don't agree with them? Well, they're kind of looking at that job growth, that job here. I'm looking for the more global picture of the job. They're looking at more minute. That's kind of the argument. So you're just picking and choosing what you want in order to make a decision. Dissent from Trump-appointed governors. Correct. No. The dissent was from the non-appointed governors by Trump, right? So the question is, who dissented besides those two that were appointed by Trump? They're thinking that Goldsby probably has repeatedly warned that the Fed might be over-tightening. Or Neil Kashari, Minneapolis vice president, expressed concern about real wage stagnation. Or Lori Lagan, possible third. Why would that be a concern? Ooh, how would you care if these people don't like it? Well, most Fed decisions are unanimous and may have one dissent. Two dissent, you haven't had two dissent in 30 years. Three dissent, I don't think has ever happened. It would send a clear message of division within the FOMC. So you've got to start, and please listen to this because you're going to have to remember this later on. There is a strong dissent at the Fed. The stock market is overvalued. The tariffs may not hold. Ghislaine Maxwell may sink a bunch of people. Right? So there's a lot of risks involved here, a tremendous amount of risk, and they could go sideways at any moment in time. Today, just today alone, right? Just today, Trump basically said that Canada is not going to get a deal because they are favoring Palestine. You can't say that because technically that's not a reason for you not to do a deal with Canada. Okay, Brazil administration is pressuring. Listen to this. The administration is pressuring the country's political establishment over a criminal case against a former leader in Brazil. What do you mean? Well, it's pressuring Jair Bolsonaro. Remember? Bolsonaro. He was a previous president of Brazil. And he basically did a bunch of things. I'm not going to go into great detail, but he got sacked by the government. And now they want to go after him. And when he lost, he went to Trump's Mar-a-Lago, and then for a couple of weeks to relax, from the loss and everything else. And now Trump says there's going to be 50% tariff on Canada, on Brazil because they're going after him. He signed on Wednesday. Trump signed an executive order implementing a 50% tariffs on goods from Brazil because they are picking on the previous president. I mean, it sounds cartoonish, but it's real. Okay? That's what he's doing. And that's a concern, right? That is a big concern. Because
White House said the tariffs would address Brazil's policy towards U.S. tech companies, including unusual and extraordinary policies and action arming U.S. companies. The free speech rights of U.S. person, the foreign. That's just filling in the blanks, right? Okay, we got to find another reason. You can't just say we're going to do 50% because you don't like what they did to your friend. Okay, well then. Unusual policies arming the U.S. companies and free speech right of U.S. persons, whatever. Additionally, the executive order found that Brazilian legal action has undermined the rule of law in Brazil. The tariff will take effect in 7 days, and right now it's 10%. It's going to go from 10% to 50%. So everything that's coming from Brazil to the U.S. has a 50% tax. Now, who's going to pay for that? I mean, if you're an importer of coffee, you're going to pay 50% extra? Really? That's a lot. Go to Afghanistan and say it to your friends. Wow. Okay. The Treasury Department also on Wednesday was freezing U.S. assets belonging to Brazilian Supreme Court Justice Alexander de Moraes, who had led the criminal trial of Bolsonaro, a Trump ally. I mean, the Treasury Department has frozen the U.S. assets belonging to Brazilian Supreme Court Justice, who has led the capital. Why? Because you are hurting my friend, has drawn the Trump administration higher over the trial and his attempt to stamp out what he says is online hate speech by Brazil's far right. Even Rubio said that he would revoke the visas of Morales and his allies in court, as well as their immediate family members. I mean, they may have good reason to do it, I'm sure, because they're not, stupid people. It's just that the concern that I have is that there are a tremendous amount of situations revolving around Trump and the people with him, and they all saying, let's just do it. Are they enablers? Now, of course, if it works, because quite frankly, not to pick on Trump all the time, the economy is doing well. The stock market is doing well. The dollar is weak, but it's good for if you're an exporter overseas because it makes your goods cheaper. So that's good. There's no war in Iran, Israel. China is staying put. Inflation is under control. In fact, 3 of those Fed chairs are saying, we should lower the rates because there's no inflation. And Russia is saying, okay, we don't like it, but, Trump misunderstood what we're saying. So they're not really pissed at Trump yet. But this is not what it's about. This channel is not about, telling you what's happening right now. This channel is about telling you what's going to happen next. That's what you need to worry about, so that you are prepared, so that you know what to do. So if all your money is in the stock market right now, and you're waiting to it to go higher and higher and higher, which is potentially good, but at some point, this thing doesn't go on forever. It cannot be. There are too many pieces running at the same time. The volatility of the situation is such that you cannot land on your feet. What do I mean by that? There's a tremendous amount of volatility, obviously caused by Trump, but he's not alone, right? Nobody's saying no to him. Nobody's trying to stop him. This is an unusual situation. It's unusual that you didn't have that before because, first of all, the people that he has with him are basically not saying no to him. They're saying yes. The Democrats, unfortunately, got to a level extremely, extremely low that they have no power. In fact, let me give you the latest approval numbers. I don't want to, for the Democrats. I mean, it's very low. People are very disappointed. And this is from the Wall Street Journal, which is kind of not Trump's best friend. A recent Wall Street Journal poll revealed that 63% of U.S. voters view the Democratic Party unfavorably. Only 33% view them favorably. 30% unfavorable gap, the worst in 30 years of the Wall Street Journal tracking. And that's the reason why Trump is able to do all the things that he's doing. This marks the party's lowest favorability rating in decades. If I know this, Trump knows that. And he's saying now is the time to act because no one can do anything. Do it now, now, now. Of course, the thing with Maxwell, he said, forget this. Why are we worrying about this? This is not what you should be focusing on. Right? This is not what you should be focusing on. You should be focusing on helping me doing these things quickly because the Democrats are out the door. I'm in charge. Nobody's going to do anything. I could do all these things quickly. As of mid-July, only 19% of registered voters approved Congressional Democrats' performance, the lowest level since 2009. This is unusual circumstances. Unfortunately, we're not running a corporation. You're running a country with lots of things inside and lots of things outside. All of these people are going to be involved. All of these people are doing that. So that's going to be a problem. And how long is it going to last? That's a question, right? How long can he keep it up? How long can he keep doing this? How long can he maintain this level of activities? Well, he's unchecked. The only thing that could stop him is an outside source, such as Ghislaine Maxwell, right? She could create a lot of damage. How can she create a lot of damage? Very simply, she could create a lot of damage by the information that she's going to report, right? So, for example, she could give direct allegation and association. If she were to testify that Trump attended, participated, was aware, helped cover up, had deeper ties, they could erode the support among independent and moderates. So that could be an issue because that he can't control. What could stop him is although they're trying, but this thing with the International Trade Association, right, where they're basically saying, well, hold on a second here. You can't. I don't think you could actually do the thing that you do in terms of the the trade agreements. This needs to be negotiated. I don't think we can actually. You cannot decide this on your own. Basically, they're doing it right now. Actually. They're doing it right now. They're actually deciding whether or not he's able to do the thing that he's supposed to be doing in tariffs. What else could happen? Inflation, no. China, China might decide to invade Taiwan. Things like although I don't think it's going to happen. But the point is, everything is centered and heavily around Trump. So what we want to know is what is going to happen next. We don't want to know what's going to happen, what has happened. We want to know what's going to be happening next. And there's a lot of things that are going to happen next that probably he won't even be able to control. And don't forget, the people that are with him are taking a huge chance. Why are they taking a huge chance? Because if this thing doesn't work out, they're going to be closely tied to him. And they know that too. And that is the reason why that they are not that involved with Trump in the decision making. How was the Japan deal negotiated, right? The recent Japan trade deal. And I think that it was negotiated by Trump himself. On July, that the deal's been calling it the biggest deal he ever met. There's some. The critics obviously have questioned about the binding nature of the commitment, particularly regarding the investment fund. But I want to know who negotiated. And I believe that Trump himself did it on his own with the guy talking, deciding. Right. So basically, you had the Japan chief trade negotiator. Um, he did 8 visits to Washington. And basically, Japan was negotiating on the threat of escalating U.S. to Trump administration deal. It was finalized. It was done over a 70-minute discussion. So yeah, they're talking. He's got his people going there, going back and forth. But at the end of the day, he's the one that makes the decision. He's the one that decides everything. It's amazing. How long can that last? Tell us what's going to happen next. Trump is not good. He's not that good as a negotiator. No, I mean, he's excellent. But he doesn't negotiate. That's not negotiation. Negotiation takes 2 years. He doesn't negotiate. He just comes in and he says, Canada, you have 70% of your resources are needed from the U.S., 30%. Oh, you're getting involved with Palestine? 30%. Okay. I didn't like you anyway to begin with, so I don't think you're going to get 10, 15 to 20%. You're going to get a large amount. Plus, I understand the Canadian people are not coming to the U.S. anyway. You should have been with me. You're the closest. You betrayed me. That's it. You're out. That's how he thinks. Now, of course, be careful, because if I start to understand how he thinks, if his enemies are starting to think that way, that's a problem. And that's why he keeps changing all the time, right? So you don't know, is he in, is he out, what's he doing, what's going on? It's always a problem with Trump, and that's what's going to happen. What's going to happen is, at some point, this whole thing collapses. But what I mean by collapse, I mean the fact that the tariffs don't hold, it's a good thing for us, right? The thing is, if there's uncertainty in the market, and what happens is we're having issues with the actual situation in the stock market. And by the way, the stock market is grossly overvalued right now. We can make it stop all of us going to the general strike. Hold that thought. In Europe right now, September 10th, there's going to be a general strike. And you know why there's a general strike? There's a general strike because they owe so much money, right, that they're going to have to cut Social Security, that they're going to have to cut expenses, that they're going to cut increases in salaries, and they don't want that. So what do they say? We don't want it. We don't want to continue paying for all these things. And that's going to be a problem, okay? So what I think is going to happen next is the first thing to go, obviously, Powell obviously is going to have to go. Well, at least he's going to lower rates definitely in September. So don't buy anything right now. Wait for the rates to come down sometime in September, if you want to buy a house or a car. The stock market is overvalued, but right now the news are good. Right, the news are very good for the stock market right now. In fact, today it's actually going up. From July, the Nasdaq is doing better than the S&P. But we're still doing good. But be careful, because things could turn on a dime. Look what happened with copper prices. Copper prices slid more than 20%. Biggest one-day drop in records going back to the 60s. Because he basically said a 50% duty would apply to copper products, but not to raw materials. Now, of course, you're going to say, well, I don't care about copper. You don't have any copper. What do I care about copper? No, you care about copper because it shows you that these things could turn on a dime. You have to understand that volatility, risk, is what you need to worry about. What they do is to get through a general strike and they would be okay, right? I don't think we're going to have a strike in the U.S. That's something that the U.S. believes. The point is that you need to understand what are the risks involved, right? And so that you could prepare for the risk. Because right now, but they don't tell you the risk. I mean, look around. Take a look at what you're reading, what you're listening to. All they do is they basically report the information. and report the information that makes you feel good. You want to feel good about Trump, and you go to Fox and you listen to what they say, right? And they're saying, look, these guys didn't lower rates. That's terrible. We had dissent, so we're gonna have lower rates later on. We need lower rates. Well, you need lower rates, but you cannot have lower rates if you have inflation. Unfortunately, these things don't hit at the same time, right? Because by the time, if the economy is slowing down right now, you're not going to be able to stop it. You're going to be able to stop it only in 12 months from now if you lower the rates. Okay. So what's going on right now is that basically they're telling you what you want to hear. You want to feel you don't like Trump, then you go to CNN. They're going to tell you all the news about Trump that's not good. How is that helping you? That doesn't help you. That just tell you what you want to know, which you already knew. And even the analysis that they're giving you, for example, even the Fed's analysis, because they said to the Fed, so what's going on? There's a dissent because some people thought that the employment is not as good. He says, well, no, I wouldn't go that far. From a macro perspective, because that's what we follow, the macro, the actual unemployment rate. The unemployment rate is pretty good right now. It's true, 4% is good. But the guy that's for the lower rates says no, but you're not looking at the right rate. You have to look at employment. You have to look at the private unemployment. Employment is not doing great at all. The private employment, give me a second, let me tell you what's going on with, like, for example, in July 2025, private employees added 104,004, right? Job. Easily surpassing the consensus estimate of 75,000. That's great. But the problem is these are mostly from not from private employment. It's mostly government and healthcare. So they're saying, okay, so it depends what you want to look at. If you want to keep the rates they are, you're looking at the macro picture. If you want lower rates, you look at the micro picture. So what do you do with all that information? Well, it depends. They tell you what you want to hear, because they could pick what they want. And that's the thing. You need somewhere like a channel like this to tell you, okay, well, hold on. What's really going on here? What is it that? And frankly, these people cannot tell you what's going on. Why? Because then they're going to lose not subscribers, but they're going to lose viewership. You're not going to listen to them. In the past, I don't know if you remember, when you used to listen to the news, you had the news. They tell you what happened, and it was kind of not biased, but in the middle. But then the news became more of, tell me what I want to hear. And unfortunately, if you keep hearing the same thing, then you're not going to see it coming. And that's the reason why we have huge crashes and huge uncertainty. That's why people lose their job. They say, what happened? Remember when, if you were in the government, right, you thought that this is going to be great. The Trump is coming in. And no, be careful. Because you've got Doge and you got all these people lost their jobs. The world would be all stop until these people are prosecuted. Let's take it easy out there, okay? So that is why conversation is very healthy. You need to discuss the issues, but you need to understand the issues, because these people, believe it or not, they all have jobs, but they will impact the way you live. They will impact the prices that you have. They will impact the cost of everything. And the issue that I'm seeing right now is that Trump is unchecked. Not that he's doing wrong things or good things. He's unchecked, and he knows it. I mean, every day there's something new. And that's, at some point, what is he doing with Mexico? Wednesday, a flurry of new trades with South Korea, India, Brazil cast doubt of the Canadian deal. I think he wants to talk about Mexico. And that's, here we go. 23 minutes ago, Trump and the president of Mexico agreed to extend the tariffs for 90 days. He has agreed to extend 90 days existing tariff because the complexity of a deal of somewhat different than other nations. And that he had a very successful discussion with her. We're getting to know and understand each other. So Mexico got a reprieve. I think they are only staying at 10%. He's having a great time. He could do whatever he wants. So 10% for Mexico and what, 30% for Canada because Canada wants to recognize Palestine? Where does it stop? Where do we stop this situation? So, Ghislaine Maxwell, huge, huge issue. Why is she a huge issue? Because she's extremely not hard, but the situation is extremely, extremely uncertain. What has happened? Well, basically, she was interviewed for 9 hours over the past 2 days, right? By the Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche. By the way, where is Pam Bondi? Anyone seen her? Where is Pam Bondi? She got hurt. She disappeared. She went to the hospital. She is. She remains in office. Some MAGA influencer, including Mike Flynn, Glenn Beck, Laura, have identified calls for removal, citing dissatisfaction with the outcome surrounding the Epstein saga. Political analysts describe her role as increasingly precarious, with her survival tied closely to internal Trump administration support and loyalty. She basically, he told her, let's not talk about it. And the MAGA people say, no, we want to talk about it. And she might be the patsy. She might be the patsy. She may actually, that's why we haven't heard from her. And that's why her Deputy Attorney General, Todd Blanche, a former legal advisor to Donald Trump, while she was a federal prison in Florida, she answered questions about roughly 100 individuals. Ghislaine Maxwell talked about 100 individuals connected to the network. The DOJ granted her limited proffer immunity, allowing Maxwell to speak without a statement being used directly against her in court. What did she say? What happened? What was the extent of the conversation? What went on? That's what we want to know. And frankly, you're not being told. And you're not going to be told for a while, actually. What does that mean? The interview was conducted under a directive reported linked to GOP pressure. So basically, the MAGA people are saying, we want to know what's going on. Legal commentators have raised concern because Blanche, direct involvement, give ethical consideration and potential conflict of interest. What does that mean? Well, basically, Blanche is a Trump appointee. He goes over there, he talks to her, and she tells him, these are the names. Obviously, he wants to make sure Trump is not in one of them, or at least it's in a way that it's a mega cover-up, right? And he said, and she said, oh, by the way, if you want me to talk to Congress, I need absolution. I need to be. I want clemency. Otherwise, I'm not talking to anyone. And I don't even know if he could share the information they told her, although it doesn't mean anything. The point is just talk, and she wants to be freed. And like I said before, but how come you didn't talk about this in the trial? No, because the trial was all about her, and obviously she wanted to minimize everything. She didn't want to talk about anything. She said, I don't know anything, so I don't know if he was there. I don't know if she was there. I don't know anything. And that's why you shouldn't give me 20 years, because I wasn't involved. But now you know lots of things, right? Now you know a lot of things. Yes. So therefore, we should listen to you now. Yeah, but the thing is, I don't want to go to jail, because if I'm going to tell you this, you're going to say, well, how come you didn't tell that in the trial? Therefore, we're going to indict you. So she said it. She wants everything. She wants to be freed. She wants to, what did she say? She wants clemency, and she wants immunity. And she's probably going to get immunity. And the reason I think she's going to get immunity is because they fired, and follow me on this one, they fired Maureen Comey. Why? Who is she? Well, Maureen Comey was a veteran federal prosecutor And she was abruptly fired July 16 to 17. Just a letter. You're out. Without no official explanation. Citing only present authority. Article 2 of the Constitution. Pff, you're gone. Now, who is Maureen Comey? You need to know who she is. This is important. She's a U.S. Attorney Office. She joined the Office of Attorney in 2015, and she led and played a key roles in high-profile prosecutions, including Ghislaine Maxwell and Sean Diddy Combs. PDD. Interesting that Trump didn't Trump say that he wanted to Trump and PDD and Sean Combs I thought he wanted to also give him clemency. No? Didn't he say that? I don't want to he was convicted, the pardon. Yeah, no. This is true. Oh my God, this is true. Trump is reportedly seriously considering issuing a presidential pardon for Combs. A pardon would come either immediately or after sentencing, which is scheduled for early October. Trump has publicly indicated he would look at the facts before making a decision. So now it's everywhere, right? It's doing everything at this point. Now, and this is a tremendous amount of coincidence because that Maureen Comey also secured conviction on prosecution-related charges for Combs, for Sean, Diddy, other cases, just as a bunch of others. Anyway, she's the daughter of James Comey, which Trump hated. So, well, I don't have any faith that Maxwell is going to be honest. But of course she's not going to be honest. Meaning that if she was honest at the beginning, well, then again, she was on trial, right? So when they said, were you involved in anything? She says, I don't know anything. I was just there, and it was these girls, and I said I introduced them, but not with that intent, and don't ask me any question about anybody else because we're just talking about me, right? And since I don't know anything, then I don't know anyone. And you still got 20 years. Because I said, you're kidding me. But now she's supposed to talk about things she didn't talk about. And there's a lot she didn't talk about because she really didn't want to go to jail for even longer time. So Maureen Comey is also the daughter of James Comey, the former FBI director fired by the president. Trump fired the father and the daughter. Who cares about that, right? Well, I will tell you what. By the way, when she left, she said, if a career prosecutor can be fired without reason, fear may seep into the decision of those who remain. Fear is the tool of tyrant. That's what she said on the way out. The thing is, it is very plausible. Okay, that's my thought. That Maureen Comey was seen as a roadblock to a potential clemency or pardon for Ghislaine Maxwell and Donald Trump. While there is no official confirmation, several circumstancing factors strongly support this possibility. Well, Pam Bondi rocks, but she's nowhere to be seen right now, by the way. What do we mean by that? Well, she was a lead prosecutor in the Maxwell case. She was a lead federal prosecutor in Ghislaine Maxwell. She was deeply involved in the trial strategy. So she knows everything. Evidence presentation, sentencing recommendation. Therefore, what is what you call institutional memory. That's what it's called. Legally and politically difficult to do anything and get past her. She would make a ruckus. And she's probably going to make a ruckus even after the fact. Clemency would require institutional cooperation. Even if the president grants clemency, the DOJ, Office of the Pardon Attorney, the Bureau of Prison, all these people are going to get involved. Having Comey in place meant a high-profile internal critic of such a move. She would be screaming bloody murder. Say, what do you mean you're letting her out? Don't forget, the mayor, I don't even go into that case, but there was a mayor of New York City, right? He was being indicted, and he also got let go thanks to Trump. And I think someone at a New York State legal left. They were so upset about it. Said, "What? This guy was a prosecutor. He was bought and paid for by the Turkish government." Eric Adams. That's right. That's right. Thanks. Where is he now? He's out. Let's talk about Eric Adams very quickly. But basically, he also got off. I mean, I was following the case, and it looked. He was Eric Adams was. He was the mayor of a former NYU captain. He's the mayor of New York City, and there is no indication that he was left office. He was recently seen a fundraiser, but he's deeply unpopular. But he basically got him and Trump. He got Trump basically told absolve him. He was under investigation, and they were going to go after him. He publicly endorsed Adams on July 1st, a very good person. I helped him up a little bit, as emphasized proactive stand, legal entanglement. In early 2025, the DOJ, led by Deputy Attorney General Emil Bove, basically charged against Adams. The order triggered the resignation of 7 DOJ prosecutors. Yeah, she ordered a dismissal of federal charge against Adams in February. That order triggered the resignation of 7 DOJ prosecutors who cited political pressure and alleged a quid pro quo involving Adams opening Rivers Bank to ICE agents. Trump said, let him go. I mean, if you know the case, I mean, Adams was caught with lots of very interesting evidence having to do with the Turkish government. So, but it gets worse than that. The contest will leak. Would you think Parker was shut down? I mean, I don't know, but I think that, so if he let him go, I'm sure you would have no issue letting her go. Now, why? Because, first of all, she was a lead prosecutor. She would be a problem. The firing was very sudden, unexplained. This type of firing, rare for a career prosecutor, suggests a deliberate removal of friction. That is unusual that you fire a prosecutor like that. The Trump allies have expressed interest in Maxwell. Trump has never ruled out clemency for Maxwell. In 2023, he said, I've met her numerous times. I wished her well. Not she's my friend, but Maxwell's brothers have reportedly tried lobbying for a release, and far-right influencer who pressured the administration have connection to narrative questioning of Epstein handling, political symbolism. So there's no direct evidence that by letting her go, this would be happening, but it certainly is a problem, right? That she's going to go. I mean, they're going to let her go because Trump has done it. Trump doesn't care. And frankly, everybody wants to know, and he wants this thing to go away. I don't think he's too worried about, what's in it. I think he's more, because even if there's something, there's nothing you could do against him. But the thing is, he doesn't want to lose the MAGA people. That's the only reason he's doing it. He's doing it because he wants to please the MAGA people. He needs the MAGA people for the power. So let's see. Let's see what happens next. But now, what can Congress do? Congress has broad investigating powers. Congress can compel the release of documents. You could say release everything. They cannot release a grand jury because a federal judge said, no, I'm not going to do it. But it could happen. The Bureau of Prison, all this could happen. The FBI, the Silk Code filing, the client co-conspiration information, they could have all this release. And of course, we still need to know what's going to happen to the money that Epstein had, which is $600 million. And ultimately, Could that impact Donald Trump? Well, it will impact Donald Trump because the most important thing, it would erode the support among independent and moderate, especially women and suburban voters. Trump has acknowledged knowing Epstein. He has not charged or named a co-conspirator, but, however, flight logs, photos, and party guest lists have kept the association under public scrutiny. So, what's happening? Well, Trump wants her out so that he could move on to other things. The problem is he's being forced to do it because of MAGA. And the problem is this thing could get out of control. And that is one out of all the situations I'm following for this channel. And don't forget to subscribe. I believe that's the only one really that he cannot control. I mean, the stock market, right? He could control it. Meaning that if you think about the stock market, what he did is that he basically said, hey, everyone, we're going to tax everyone, 100 countries at 10 to 30%. Market collapsed. Then he says, okay, I'm going to give you a reprieve, and I'm going to go one at a time. Market went up. He says, look, market is up because of me. Okay. Just to keep in mind that Spain is still doing better than the U.S. right now. Just saying. So it's not like the U.S. market is doing so great and incredible right now. I mean, it's doing better, but we took it a huge amount of uncertainty. A huge amount of uncertainty was taken. Next. What can he do about the stock market? Right? What can he possibly do about the stock market? Well, he almost crashed it, quite frankly. The dollar, he wants the dollar weak. Why? Because it makes it easy for the exporter from the U.S. to the outside. That's what he does. What about the tariffs? He controls the tariffs. I mean, as you could see today, he controls the tariffs today with Canada. He basically told Canada, you like Palestine, you are out. That's amazing if you think about it. Then you have Iran versus Israel, right? What about Iran versus Israel? He controls that too. He controls everything. China. They're having discussion with China right now. And with China, the problem is that it's a big problem with China. It's a big problem with China because China does not want to deal with the U.S. like the other countries. China wants to sell its ware. China has a huge amount of deflation. And the U.S. needs the rare minerals. But China knows at some point there's going to be some kind of conflict. Why would I give you the rare minerals? Because the rare minerals go in the missiles. Do you know that the U.S. only has 1 week worth of missiles to fight a long, extended war? What do you do with something like that? It becomes more and more difficult. So the risk that I see is that for some reason, Trump loses control over all these items, and they're all tied to this case. And the way he loses control is that he loses his power base, which is MAGA. And you will notice something. You will notice that the U.S. is doing more and more, that is being more and more involved, that Trump is more and more involved in everything that has to do with everything, and less people are involved with him. Meaning that he controls everything, right? He's the one doing the talking. He's the one doing everything. And less people are with him. When was the last time you saw J.D. Vance? Right? In fact, when you hear him talk about Trump, most of the time they are delegating, they're saying, well, it's all of his ideas. He's the one that decides everything. He controls everything because at the end of the day, they want their cake and eat it too, meaning that when this is done and they start losing, they could always say, well, I mean, he's the one that negotiated everything. I wasn't involved in anything. Right? He doesn't want that. They don't want that. And that is a problem because ultimately what's going to happen is you are going to have a situation where all these people are slowly pulling away from Trump because they don't want to be dirtied with what's going to happen next. And what can happen next, if that lady comes out and start talking, that's going to be a lot of damage. She's going to be out there talking and saying things like that we don't want to hear. He loses the support, and then we're back to square one. You need to understand that Trump is doing everything. Literally doing everything. What is he doing? Well, I mean, you can't make this stuff up, but for example, right now, what is he doing right now? Well, first of all, right now, Mexico got a reprieve for 90 days. Why? Well, because I like her, I'm talking to her, and I think it's good. Canada is, he doesn't think he's going to be able to do a deal by August 1st, and he definitely gets an extension because Canada likes Palestine. What does that have to do with anything? That's how it is. We do not like it. I don't like these people, therefore, but you cannot decide on tariffs on that basis. You need an actual reason. You can't just say because you don't like a country. Are the countries threatening you? Is there something happening that we need to? No. The next thing that he's talking about is obviously, and that's going to be a problem, is the Russia situation, right? Basically, he gave a very tight deadline to India very recently to actually start managing this process a lot better with China, with Russia. You see, you involved with Russia, you're involved with Russia, then you cannot do business. That's gonna be a problem. That's gonna be very difficult. That's how he's running it. Okay, so we're literally the companies need to deal with all these tariffs. Okay, now how are the companies dealing with 50 billions of new tariffs? From car, furniture, blue jeans, right? So far, President Trump hasn't paid a rate of import in the first half of the year. Trump keeps on winning. He is. Duties collected by the U.S. have totaled $90 billion, more than double what was collected in 2024. It's fantastic, right? The importers pay the duties and may choose to strike a deal with the supplier, eat the cost, or pass it along to the consumer. Now, the question is, what's going to happen? Although, at the end of the day, the consumer is going to be passed on. But this is how tariffs are affecting business and consumer. 2024, passenger cars, right? New passenger cars with 4-cylinder. Between January and May, last year, duties collected $456 million. In 2025, $2.3 billion. $2.3 billion collected for passengers' car. So Japanese car maker Mitsubishi said in June that it would hike U.S. vehicle prices an average of 2.1% and pass on the cost to the consumer. General Motors last week said it took a $1 billion tariff and hasn't ruled out raising prices. What you need to know is that very slowly at first, but this is going to permeate through the system and it's going to start hitting the tariffs, hitting the consumer at some point. I mean, Mitsubishi is doing it already. They're raising the prices. GM say, okay, I don't want to appear like I'm expensive, so I'm gonna relax. Furniture maker IKEA source some of their products from Asia and have already raised prices to try offset the tariffs. And it's, if I don't know, check out IKEA. Have you seen them prices? Hookah Furnishing CEO said in June that the company is mitigating tariffs caused with help from the company's sourcing partners because they didn't know what was going on. But they source 80% of their product from Vietnam, which will face 20% tariff August 1st. Car tires, 98 million last year, 216 million this year. Goodyear CEO said in June that the company has already increased prices for its tires. Have you seen the prices going up? The company netted $9 billion in sales. Toyota, tire supplier, increased some price in May, up to 5%. Clothing, athletic shoes, totes and bags. So what's happening? What's happening is you have a convolution of risk that are starting to tabulating, and they're holding on to one person, which is Trump. What do I mean by that? Well, you have the risk of the economy. You have the risk of the stock market. You have the risk of the dollar. You have the risk of the tariffs and the risk of removing power from power, literally. You have the risk of China, the risk of inflation, Russia. How is this all possible? This is only possible because Trump is able to control everything. And he's able to control everything because the formula is this. He has no one to tell him not to do something, and the people that are with him are basically saying, yes, you should be doing all these things. So, my friend, we need to watch this, and we need to watch this very carefully. Going forward, over the next couple of days, this is what we are going to talk about. We're going to talk about, I want to make sure we talk about the right things with you. What I'm going to have is, because at the end of the day, I'm always looking for the type of risks that are going on. Let's talk about, because at the end of the day, it's the stock market and your job that I'm concerned about. And I want to make sure you guys control this. So let's talk about the Indian transaction. I think we need to talk about India. We're going to talk about what's happening with, just give me a second here, but we're going to talk about India. We're going to talk about those dissents at the Fed. We're going to talk about China and the fact that it's decoupling, and that's going to be a problem, trust me. And then we're also going to talk about Europe and the U.S. because we're going to need, Trump is a lying legend, a living legend. Yeah, I mean, he knows what he's talking about. He got this thing done. Now, you could always say that Trump is very lucky as well, right? That basically he got away with lots of things and he had it right the first time. He's going to... Listen, we'll see. The thing is, unfortunately, nothing lasts forever, as we know. And risk like the one that we're discussing today is something that you always need to be concerned about. And that's what we'll do. Okay, my friends. Don't forget to subscribe. Take a look at the Patreon channel. And I will see you very soon.